Hello and welcome to the Now Spinning Magazine podcast with me, Phil Aston. And on this episode, I'm delighted to have with me Richard Whittaker from Starboard Audio. Richard is Dolby Atmos mix engineer, audio specialist, mixing, production, etc. And we're here to talk about Thin Lizzy's Acoustic Sessions album, which I've reviewed on the Now Spinning Magazine website and YouTube channel recently. But I also realised myself that I've got quite a bit of Richard's work surrounding me, which is the 1976 Thin Lizzy set, which made one of my, I think it was in my top 3 box sets of 2024. Also, the superb 5.1 mix for Bridge of Sighs. And also, Richard's worked on Michael Kiwanuka's album. I know it's not this one, it's the Dolby Atmos version. Yes, yeah. And then going right back into the past, but this is one of my favourite albums of ever, is Quadrophenia. So welcome, Richard. I've got so much of your stuff surrounding me.
Thank you. I'm glad you appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, I want to talk about the acoustic sessions because when this was announced, and maybe it was because the way the PR came out saying the first new Thin Lizzy album for X amount of years, it seemed to initially polarize Thin Lizzy fans thinking, well, how can it be a brand new album? And there was a kind of bit of a kickback against it in some ways. But I know many people who thought that way have gone out and bought it now. But one of my first questions is, because this focuses on tracks from the first 3 Thin Lizzy albums. I mean, what kind of work did you need to do on the original tapes once you got hold of them?
Okay, so to put this into some context, this whole project came out of when I was working on the Vagabonds box set.
Right.
And we did all the remix, got everything delivered, and I got these 4 versions, which Mama Nature Said, Song for Our Way, Here I Go Again, and Slow Blues.
Yeah.
And I didn't put them forward for the box set. I just said, what do you think to these, to the label? And they loved them. So they decided to put them out as a digital EP. And the response to that EP was so overwhelming that we all listened to what the fans had to say. And we thought, well, we could make something of this. But rather than just put those 4 songs out as, an RSD or whatever, we decided to do something a bit more in depth and something a bit more special than just throwing them out there, which is where the project all came from. But yeah, I mean, going back to when the multi-tracks come to me, I go through them all forensically and clean them up and make them, sound more, obviously in keeping with the provenance of the era when I'm mixing. I don't do anything out of its era or out of its time. I try and keep it all very strictly respectful to the original. But yeah, so essentially I go through and I forensically analyze absolutely everything in the whole recording process from when they started the album to when they finished the album, and I just literally put it all together piece by piece.
Were the tracks that you chose, the ones that are on the album, are they different takes and versions of the original tracks? Because when I was listening to them, I thought everything sounded so new. It's so pristine the way it's recorded. But are they different takes? Because some of the words or lines seem different to the versions that I know.
They all have something different in them. There's a lot of Easter eggs in there.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, for example, Mama Nature Said that's a different take. That's not been heard before.
I see.
It's a different duration. There's Song for While I'm Away. That is the original version, but what you don't get on the original version is the orchestral parts all the way through. You only got the orchestra at the end of the track. Now it's throughout. So that's the other difference. So every single song has something completely different to it and something that's not been heard before.
I thought so, because I remember when I did the review, I was talking about the orchestral section on A Song for While I'm Away, and I thought, I don't remember it being so prominent before, and that's obviously why. And Here is a beautiful track, but one of the ones I felt really brought it home to me, this was the track Dublin.
Oh yeah.
Because it's just Phil and Eric, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, the original, it's not too far away from the original, to be honest with you. But you had the keyboards on the original, which are not on there now.
Yeah,
Place those with sort of harmonic, acoustic harmonics and things. So it's a slight removal from the original, but it's not a million miles away. But Eric's solo on that is incredible. It's just takes it to another level, in my opinion.
Were you with Eric when he laid down these new parts?
Yes, I was in Belfast with him. Yeah.
You were with him.
Yeah, I recorded it. We were at a studio in Belfast called Start Together Studios, and I worked with a chap called Michael Bell over there. We had a very good time. It was a great few days there.
What was it? I mean, many of us have issues when we look back at old photographs of ourselves. But as a musician, I mean, Eric going back and putting guitar down on something that he'd done decades ago, even as a musician, you change, your style changes, your technique changes. I mean, did Eric talk about that? What it was like actually sitting there with the cans on, literally playing along with Phil?
It really was, especially when he heard Phil's voice on its own for the first
isolated time.
For all those years. It really made him sort of a little bit emotional, I think, really. So quite a difficult thing for him to get through. But he did a fantastic job. He's still got it. He's actually, he gave it some and did a really great job.
Did you have to use any? Well, I mean, what kind of modern techniques did you use to actually preserve the vintage kind of essence of these tracks? You said you approached it to try and keep that authenticity. Is it difficult? Were the tapes in good condition?
Oh, the tapes are fine. Yeah. I mean, tapes degrade, but you can restore and transfer them quite, fairly well now. So there's not a problem with that era. But when I come to mix things like this, I approach it and I try and approach it. I research how they mixed it originally and what studios they mixed it in and what equipment they used, and really go into it forensically and try and keep it as natural as it was done back then. Essentially, just adding little bits that can, we've got now techniques to clean things up a bit more than they did back in the day. But I do try and keep strictly within how an album or a song was mixed back in 1970, whatever. There's no, there's many techniques that you could apply that would take it out of its era quite quickly. So it's you have to be very, very careful with it. Really, it's almost like restoring antiques, isn't it? Really, it's that sort of thing.
Yeah.
My brother's antique the other, but anyway, restoring antiques. If you go too far with it, you ruin it. But if you keep it within its provenance and you keep it accurate to its time, then you don't notice the restoration, essentially.
I mean, did you and Eric kind of think about arranging, and what did you had like pre-planning meetings before you laid the track down? The reason my question is, how did you know when to pull back and think we're done? We don't need to add anything else, because it must be so difficult to think, well, we could just add another guitar there, or.
Well, there was no pre-planning. I as I say, when there was such a response to the first 4 tracks when they went out on that initial digital EP, that Decca said we should make some novice. What can you do if we give you the first 3 albums? Because that's the point. It's a Decca release. It's the Decca era of Thin Lizzy.
Yes, it's those first 3. Isn't it?
It's the first 3 albums and the New Day EP, and tracks from all of those releases appear on this record. So they said, what can you do with these? If we give you all the multi-tracks of that era, can you go through it all and come to us with some ideas of what you think would work? And I've got quite a few of the ideas left, actually, which we didn't approach for various reasons. So who knows, maybe we get some time to look at these projects again. But so I presented all these tracks and I said, look, some of these work as standalone, some of them, don't really work because they're missing the solos or the missing parts.
Yes, of course, yeah.
That we can't really use without. So they said, well, should we talk to Eric and see if he's interested in adding those parts? And that's where the whole idea sort of developed.
Came from.
Yeah, and so then we then booked the session over in Belfast, and I sent Eric over a bunch of the songs to listen to and to learn to what we're going to be doing and what the structures were. And then he just came in the studio and said, right, let's go. And we did it over 2 days. It was great, So there was no real pre-planning. I had in my head what I wanted him to do. He turned up and he did things that I didn't expect him to do, which added to it all. It all kind of over the 2 days we were in the studio, it just sort of, developed from there and became became what it is now. So
Yeah, I mean, Whiskey in the Jar is such an iconic track. It's kind of, people know that one so well. I mean, when the process of breaking that down and taking things out from it and putting acoustics in, was that a simple version or, I mean, as you took back the layers, how did that feel?
Yeah, I mean, the original's acoustic anyway. So
yeah, that's right.
I hadn't planned to do Whiskey in the Jar, but Decca said we have to do it because if we don't do it, we'll get crucified if we don't do. That's the biggest hit from
that period. Yeah,
we kind of have to do this really. So as I say, I hadn't included that in the set, so that was a bit of okay, let's go back and see what I can do with this, which is why the song starts. I've tried to make it a different version as best I can with what's there, because initially it is an acoustic song. But so the little guitar parts that Eric had really sort of brought it into a new version, really. And the drums, obviously, I remixed the drums in a different way to how they were initially mixed, so that adds more of a folky sort of a feel to the drums. So yeah, that had to be on there basically. So yeah.
I know were there any kind of discoveries from going through the Decca recordings? I know that the band themselves in the late 70s had, with people like Midge Ure and Gary Moore, had gone back and tweaked these tracks themselves, hadn't they? Yes. Once they'd signed to Vertigo. So when you were going through all the archives, did you discover things that could be used later on, or have they all been put into the Vagabond set?
Yeah, everything's out there now for this era. Well, for the Vagabond stuff, it is. There's we've not touched Shades or the first record yet. There's lots in there, but particularly Shades. Actually, there's a lot of stuff in Shades. But yeah, I mean, going back to this era, I mean, the Vagabond stuff has all been done.
It's all out there, isn't it? Yeah.
There's nothing else really that we could do with that. Not that I can think of, really.
Yeah. So one of the other aspects of this album, the other Shades of Blue Orphanage. This is another one of my favourites off the album, and I think it's because of Clodagh Simmons backing vocals and on Mellotron, and that again, it's just so much clearer and more. I don't know. It's just what you've done to it. It just sounds so different to the version of that I'm.
Yeah, I mean, the original album of Shades, no disrespect to the original, it's not the best mix in the world, really. It's a straight, and I've heard the multi-tracks and the multi-tracks are quite noisy as well, which kind of makes me think that potentially they'd just got a new machine in, the new tape machine, and it hadn't been calibrated as it should have been. So there was some in there that is sort of added to the sound of that album, which if I get the opportunity to work on that, I will definitely fix and make a new mix of, which I'm looking forward to doing if I get to get there, but we'll see. But yeah, so getting the opportunity to do this one was good, because, removing all that excess noise and bringing all the parts to the forefront was really nice. It's really quite atmospheric, that track, I think.
I think it's one of my favourite tracks off the album. Here I Go Again is really good as well. But I did sing.
The other thing to note on that is I actually had to cut a verse out of that because the song was so long with Eric's solo section there as well.
Oh, of course, yeah.
The other thing that was important to this was that the duration of the album was very important, because I wanted to keep it. Traditionally, this album would have come out on vinyl, and you're limited the amount of time you can fit on each side of a record. So I was very conscious. I wanted to keep it to a vinyl duration for the entire album, which is why there are no, we could have added so many other tracks and versions there to make it a CD length if you wanted to. But my point was to keep it an original release from the 70s, which would have been album side 1, album side 2. So that was another thing to note, that we had to cut out a verse to order to accommodate Eric's solo, which in that song is incredible. The solo in that song is so nice.
I mean, the remix is so clear and so profound in many ways that I suppose my next question, and the fact you've said, you kept it to literally 15 odd minutes aside, is that
it was under 20, yeah.
Under 20, it's quite short.
No, actually, no. It's long. It's just longer than 20. Yeah.
Is it?
That's ideal sort of vinyl territory. Because the other version,
20 minutes. Yeah.
Because the other version, the black and white D2C version's got the additional version of slow blues in it, so that actually goes towards 25 minutes. So,
that's right. Yeah.
So 25 minutes on the side of vinyl is really pushing it, because you start losing audio quality then. So
I mean, you've done such a great job on the Vagabond set that is there any thought about doing the first two albums remixed out remixes of those both albums, especially considering how the difference it's made to things like Shades and a Song for While I'm Away?
I hope so. Yeah, we'll have to see. See what happens. Yeah, I would love to. But yeah, it's down to Decca and Universal, so what they want to do with that, really. But I'm available if it was it.
Well, the thing is, you've also, I mean, because Thin Lizzy's brand and their name is just such a high profile in recent years, especially because of the work that's been done on these archival releases. And I just want to briefly switch to the 1976 set, which obviously is a different era for Thin Lizzy. And you worked very closely with Scott Gorham on that. And that, I mean, this set sold out within hours, didn't it? Really, just went. Yeah. And the remixes are just stunning. What was it like working with Scott on this?
Scott's brilliant. I'm good friends with Scott. He's a lovely guy. It's a lot of fun as well. But yeah, he came to me. We went out for a drink, and he came to me and he said, "I've never been happy with. I mean, it's no secret. He's never been happy with the sound on those records." And he said, "This is what I want to do." And I know he's tried in the past with other mixers to do similar sort of things. And so he told me what he wanted. And again, I went through all the multis and dug out all this. And on this particular one, I found lots of parts that had not been heard before or had not been quite mixed in release versions before. So I used a lot of stuff that had not been heard before from the multi-tracks and made this sort of 2024 version that me and Scott thought up. It's not there to challenge the original. You could never do that, but it was just a version that's made Scott happy, and hopefully the fans enjoyed it. Yeah.
I find it really exciting, to be honest. I've lived with these albums since I was a teenager, and to hear the new mixes, this is the great thing about remixes. I mean, because we're moving out of the kind of remastered era to something where it's not replacing what you know. It's just a different way of experiencing what you know. So I loved it when Jailbreak started, and I thought, whoa, not heard that before. I thought that was fantastic.
That's all on the multi-tracks. It just wasn't used. I don't know why. Even though the reverse stuff at the beginning, that was all that. And I showed it to Scott, and I was like, "What's that?" He went, "I don't know, but it should have been on there." And that he said that many times. Why is that missing? Yeah.
It must have been quite interesting for you, because you've been working with the Thin Lizzy right from the beginning, going through the oldest tapes there are with them, and then moving from this time when Brian Robinson and Scott Gorham joined and the band changed, listening to how Phil Lynnott's voice and his songwriting style alters. I mean, could you tell that the way that they were recording and was changing through this period as well?
Yes, I mean, obviously they're developing as a band and developing as songwriters, and obviously the period from when Eric was in it as to how it transformed to Brian Robertson and Scott Gorham era. It's. I mean, obviously that sort of style of guitar playing did kind of start emerging when Eric was around, actually, to be honest with you. So the ideas were there already, I think. So obviously when you do have two guitars, you can explore that even further.
Of course you can, yeah, that's right.
But, so there was definitely development going on there, and obviously you got the two albums between. After Eric left, you then got Fighting and Nightlife, and then you moved into the at that point they'd really developed it. But I think by the time Jailbreak came, I think that was kind of their last chance, wasn't it? Because they'd not really.
That's right. That's absolutely right. Yeah.
With the numbers, so they were on their last chance, so to speak, and they actually blew it out the water.
Yeah, very, very true. Yeah. I guess you probably might not be able to answer a question like this, but the bridge between the Decca years and what you've recently done with Scott is obviously Nightlife and Fighting. I mean, are there any plans to visit those in a way?
Hopefully, yes.
Oh,
hopefully, we'll see. There are things being discussed. To what degree, I don't know, but we'll have to wait and see. Yeah.
Oh, that would be really exciting. I mean, is that if you could work on any kind of Thin Lizzy project next, would that be on the list, or is there something else that you'd like to be involved in?
Oh, I'd like to be involved in all of it. I want to do it all. Send them one at a time. It's fine. But no, I just wait to be asked, and if I'm lucky enough to be asked, I'll do it. If not, and no sweat.
Great. Well, I'd like to ask you a question about another fine piece of your work, which is Bridget Size. And the reason my question here is quite simple in a way. When I was very lucky to interview Robin about this mix, and
cool.
I said, I was really surprised, Robin, to actually, because I thought I could hear Hammond organ in it, and he went, "There's no Hammond organ on the album." But
there are some organ parts, but they're not. It's not Hammond. It's he's got he plays with what sounds like a Leslie guitar pedal.
Oh, right.
You get a lot of that. There were lots of recording techniques used in that record. Is it Jeff Emerson, the producer, the mixer?
Yes, yeah.
Who worked with the Beatles? He was on the Abbey Road go. He did a stunning job. It's incredible. So yeah, there's lots of
that kind of sound like keyboard laying, but it isn't. Yeah.
It's just the different layers of guitar basically that Robin used different effects to create that with. Or Jeff different miking techniques and things to make the guitar sound slightly different. So it was very interesting to do that one, actually. Yeah.
I guess one of the things that must have been really interesting to do, of course, and why I love this remix so much is the fact that so much went on as the faders went down originally in 1974. Some of the songs are literally a minute and a half, 2 minutes longer as you just left it go to the natural end. That must have been amazing.
Yeah, because when Chrysalis, I spoke to them about it, they sent me all the multis, and I was like, a lot of these songs are much longer than the actual record versions, and they said, well, could you just run them off? And I was, yeah, no problem. And I did, and then they just went with it, and I was like, oh, okay. So a lot of the tracks just fall off at the end, and I guess they like that, but I was like,
I love it, and
I probably wouldn't have done that myself, but that's cool as long as you like it. It's fine.
No, I absolutely love it, and I can tell you now the feedback from people in my community love that. I think it started with when Roger Glover did Machine Head, and he just left it so the tracks just fell off the end, and I think it's just wonderful. I think we're always curious as music fans is what happens after the fade, or did they carry on, or did you just so I think that aspect of that is fantastic. And
I think again the reason why they used to do that is because, going back to, you were limited to how much audio you fit on either side of a record, essentially. So
exactly,
you had to think, do I want an extra 2 minutes at the end of the song, or maybe can I fit another song on the end of it? So that was a decision that was made there. And then
my last question, Richard, is about Quadrophenia, which goes back to 2011. So it's one of your first 5.1 mixes, I guess.
Yeah.
But this is such a cinematic album, and its kind of position in the world of rock music. What was it like at that time for you? Because you've done so much since, but I mean, obviously to work on that project, and I say it is cinematic. It is. It's not like just a normal. I'm not saying the Thin Lizzy is like normal straight rock songs, but the Quadrophenia is almost like theatre, isn't it? In some of the tracks.
Oh, it is. Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've worked for the Who for nearly 20 years now. I mixed. That wasn't solely me. That was me mixing with a guy called Bob Pridden.
Yeah, Bob Pridden. Yeah,
he was a very good mate of mine. We've done lots of work. I mean, Bob's taught me pretty much everything I know. So I owe my entire career to Mr. Pridden. He's an absolute legend, and he's an incredibly good engineer. We went back then. We dug it all. That was quite a complicated record to work on. That took us quite a long time to do that record initially. But yeah, that was a lot of fun. A lot of complex parts to recreate. Because how they did it back in the day, I have no idea. Because they got 16 and 24 tracks to work with, and they'd taken every single space on the tape to work with. So when we gave each individual instrument its own channel within Pro Tools, it was this enormous session. So mix that must have been like some sort of special forces mission to do that. It's incredible stuff. incredible stuff. But yeah, that was a pretty cool thing. I actually remixed that recently in Dolby Atmos.
Yeah, yes.
It's not had a physical release. It's just come out on Apple, which is a shame because it sounds really cool. Because we took that and me and Bob took it one step further and made it even more, immersive than the 5.1 was. So,
no, I've not heard the Dolby Atmos version of Quadrophenia. I'd love to.
Hopefully, it'll get a release at some point. I'm hoping so, but we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, there we go. So what are you working on next? What projects are you currently on, Richard?
What am I at the moment? I couldn't possibly comment.
Couldn't probably comment. Yeah, it's all secret. Yeah, watch this space.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I've got a lot of things going on, so I'm flat out busy all the time. So yeah.
Well, that's fantastic news. So if people want to keep an eye on where things might bubble up, where you might mention it, would that be starboard.audio? The best place to go?
My website, all the social media things, Instagram. I'm most prevalent on Instagram. I prefer that medium, to be honest with you, just to put things out there for people to see what's going on. So yeah, keep an eye on that.
All right. Well, thanks very much, Reg. Thanks for all your time, and absolutely love the stuff that you've done. And hopefully I'll talk to you again when you have your next project out there.
Absolutely, no problem.
All right. Thanks, Richard. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
A huge thank you to my guest, Richard Whittaker, talking there about Thin Lizzy, the Acoustic Sessions, the 1976 box set, a little touch there on Robin Trower's Bridge of Sighs and looking back at Quadrophenia. And there's a hint that we might be having some more Thin Lizzy remixes, or hopefully another box set as well, by the sound of it. But don't forget to follow Richard on Instagram, or you can go to his website at starboard.audio. But thank you everyone for tuning in today and watching and listening to this. Remember, check out the podcast, check out the website at nowspinning.co.uk, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and wherever you are on social media, so are we. Become a patron, a YouTube member, and get to join our Facebook community, our WhatsApp community, and also come to our twice monthly virtual pub meetups at the Now Spinning Arms as well. Remember, music is the healer and doctor. Please take care, and I'll talk to you all very, very soon.